Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you how to make is a coil. A coil is just a snake. Now I'm taking these pieces, I'm putting them together. So I have to wedge my clay real quick. It's not a very big piece, so it won't be as easy to wedge. So I'm using more of my thumbs to wedge this smaller piece. Then I'm going to squish it out into a thick snake. And then you just roll it out into an even thickness of a snake called a coil. You can do it however technique works for you. For me, I like to always roll away from me, that way I don't end up with a flat spot. If it works for you to go back and forth, that's fine. Just make sure that you're putting a little pressure on it and getting it to squish out a little bit longer each time. You want to keep it an even thickness. You want to end up about 1/4 of an inch thick. You can make skinnier ones, but 1/4 of an inch thick is as big as you want it to be, because you don't want it to be too big that it won't dry out for you. Because again, if it doesn't get dried out in the middle, you're going to end up with an explosion in the kiln and you'll have it in pieces. So as I work this piece, I kind of find where it's thicker, and that's where I roll it. And I keep rolling it till I've got it to the thickness that I want. And then I can shape this to what I want. I can cut it down into pieces, whatever I need to do with it. So there's a coil. I've done a coil, slab. You can make a pinch pot. So for a pinch pot, you need a ball of clay. So I'm going to wedge this back up. A pinch pot is going to make a bowl, basically. Okay, so I wedged it, now I'm going to make it into a ball. The smoother you start out with it, the better off you'll be. But try to make sure you don't get any air pockets either, because again, you don't want it to explode in the kiln. You can take just a little bit of water on your fingers to smooth it out. But that can also make it kind of sticky, so be careful with that. So if you get kind of a dry spot, just smooth it off with a little bit of water on your fingers. It is going to dry out, the clay is going to dry out some, because your hands are going to soak out some of that moisture. And then your hands will get dry at the end, so make sure you put lotion on afterwards. Alright, so I have a ball of clay. I'm going to stick my thumb in where I think is about middle. So I have a thumb stuck in there. And then I'm going to pinch and turn, just pinch a little bit and turn it. And I got to pinch the bottom too. So I keep kind of pushing my thumb down in there. It's going to open up into a bigger bowl. So it's starting to get opened up more. It's still too thick though. I've got to get it down to 1/4 of an inch thick walls all the way around, including the bottom. And then I can take and smooth off the outside edges. So I've made my bowl. I would just smooth it off if I want it smooth. If I want it kind of rough looking like that, then I can leave it. It's whatever you need it for. Depends on what you need it for. If you only need half of a bowl, then you can use the wire cutters and cut it in half. So you can do almost anything you want with these. So you've got slab, coil, pinch pot, and then you can texturize things. And the way you can texturize is use different tools. You can use, let's see, I don't really have any texturizing tools here. There we go, fork. You can be as creative as you want on how you texturize. You can use any tool you want to texturize. So I'm just kind of scraping lines into it with this tool. And I make sure I clean it up some. If I don't want those little pieces sticking out, then I can just brush those off. I can use a fork and create textures. Again, you can be as creative as you want on how you make textures. It's up to you. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to attach two pieces of clay. So let's say I want to attach this and a piece of my coil. So I'm going to attach these. I'm going to make this kind of a root, I think. So I'm going to narrow my coil some into more of a cone shape. So I'm going to attach those together right there. So first step I'm going to do is mark where it's going to attach with the needle tool. So all I've done is put a little mark where it's going to attach. So I just kind of traced around that. I'm going to separate those. Now I'm going to score and slip both pieces. Score means I'm going to put a bunch of little hash marks on them, little scratch lines on them. Slip means slippery wet clay, extra wet clay. So I'm going to get some slip. And I'm going to get this piece of this tool where it has the little corner edges on it. You can do it with just about anything. So I'm going to score where it's going to attach here with this tool. So I've made a bunch of little lines there. I'm going to go the other direction to really make sure it gets scored. And I'm going to do the same thing on this piece. I'm going to score it. Then I'm going to open my box of slip. There's a twist tie on it. Do not lose that twist tie. Open the bag so that it kind of goes over the box because you want to keep that open. You don't want the bag falling into the slip. And then you get a little bit of slip. You can do that with your finger. You can do that with a wooden tool if you don't want to get that messy. And you put the slip right on top of where you scored it on both pieces. I'm going to wipe my fingers off a little bit so I can work with this again. And then I'm going to put this back down where it goes. I'm going to squish it on there a little bit. And then I'm going to take a wooden tool. And I'm going to make sure I have it attached well. So I'm just going to pull a little bit of clay together. I can't see that very well, sorry. So it's just pulling a little bit of clay around the whole thing. To make sure it's attached, and then if you want it smooth, you can smooth it off. The slip looks a little bit different in color right now, but once it's fired, you won't see a difference unless it's texture. If it's smooth, it will be matched to the same thing. If it's rough, then you'll notice it. So I'm going to go underneath and do the same thing. Make sure I get all that attached and smoothed off. So that's attaching using score and slip. The last thing I'm going to show you is subtracting the clay. For subtracting is not the same as cutting away. You can cut holes into it, but that's not subtraction. You're more than welcome to cut holes too. Subtraction is when you remove part of the clay. So on here I'll show you removing part of the clay. So I'm going to use this loop tool. It has different size loops on it. I have different size loop tools depending on what size you need. I'm going to use the smaller one, and I just peel a ribbon off of it just a little bit. And that is using subtraction, removing part of the clay. You can do a wider section, or you can do the narrow section, but it should be a little bit lower in thickness without being cut all the way through. You can make designs with it, you can do all kinds of stuff with it.